Well, when did you start branching into musics of other cultures?
Like penicillin. No. When I worked at the bakery, I needed the dough. I got these. That's interesting too because even with the grease band, because we were listening to Penderecki and Varese and all this stuff. In fact, a couple of the guys and myself, we there was a guy Sid Stiegel who studied with John Cage and people, and we did some pieces. Dick Robinson built these weird electronic things with roll, so we did like really avant-garde stuff that was not the grease band.
This is
Uh,
classically inspired Penderecki, Varese, that kind of thing.
Correct. And I was blessed later in life to play Ancient Voices of Children by George Crumb
Yeah,
with
phenomenal piece.
Thamyrus, yeah. And I heard that the radio stations. Here we go, driving down to play the strip clubs. There used to be strip clubs that I played at in high school. They brought the charts in, and it's like the lady's going, because as a kid, you're like bump, 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 boom, the butt goes back, you make the noise. Well, she's doing pelvic thrust, but I'm catching her rear end going back. She stops the rehearsal and goes, "No, honey, when I do this, you do that." But the tail feathers, doorman, but I actually played strip clubs with the comedian. They would bring the act, stuff like that. So that's another aspect that was going on. But Glenn and I, who was in the Grease band, somehow there used to be this great record store, and I had a buddy, Al Nicholson, who was a wonderful drummer, and we started getting deeply into African music, right? So that was the first thing. Then I guess one day I heard some Ravi Shankar. I think it was Monterey, yeah. And I was starting to do yoga and all that, but I was like, all right, who's strangling the cat? The sitar. And there was tabla, and of course, we're not used to the alap, which happens, which is the long, slow intro, right? So I put it away. Then later, I heard that same record after my inner my I had more stillness, and I went, oh, that's in 14 beats. It's Adi Choto. So then I became interested in that, but then I didn't have any opportunity until Colin Walcott, and then he would come, and I actually Vidal Roy had a set, and then I broke my drums, never did it, and then probably about 15 years ago, my son really got into it through me. I have pictures of him and I, like he's on bongos and I'm on tabla, and I had hair down. I was like a Sikh, so I had the big beard, the turban, and the knot up here. So he was blessed to have a really wonderful guru for over 20 years. And so to bond to get, because my son's a great drummer too in Sydney. My other son's a retired commander F-18 pilot, and he's working for the FAA. So I wanted, that's something we could have in common. So I got back into tabla, and since then I've been blessed to study with some really wonderful people and also share with like Brian and a couple of other students, which is a leap because it's easy to go, I already got this together. What do I want to do at this age to just do this for the sake of that with no goal of like, I'm going to be the cat.
Mm-hmm.
So then Greek music, I was with the Grease band, and they were looking for some drummer that could play odd meter, and I went in there, and they're doing like something in 17, and they did a really nice Karsi Lama, which is the same rhythm as Blue Rondo a la Turk, 9-8-1-1, 1-2-1. But it's more not, it's the real deal, not dee 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 dee. And some yotisa, some yotisa, 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1. So I'm wearing a turban. I've got some great photos of that. Funny little place, the Grecian village, right at the railroad tracks, basically the size of a double wide. A train would come by, shake it. The owner would shoot rats in the kitchen with a 22. Dude, guys would be hanging upside down from the rafters. There was live Greek music too. There was all these real Greek places, the Acropolis, Athens of Greece. That's where I played with my first belly dancers. They had these beautiful lady, one from Egypt and Turkey. And actually, George Stevens, who was a big porno king here many, many years ago, he owned that place. But it had like the upholstered walls and the fountains and all. But yeah, the whole Greek thing. So since that time, I've made friends with Greek people. I really have a strong thing with the Hellenic culture, and I do all the dances. I mean, I think it's a wonderful, expression of that dance, right? So that's another world music. And then flamenco, I guess you could qualify. That was accidental too, right? I didn't seek it out, but this lady who's a dear friend of mine, Ulrika Frank, she was looking for a percussionist, and she'd been through some cats, and so I went over there, and I didn't know what the hell it was going to be. I had a conga drum. I didn't even know what a cajon was, and I kind of played, and everybody's like, "Yeah, you should be in the group," and I'm like, "Well, you guys don't need me." Now, how many musicians would say that? Here's a money, you could possibly make money, son. But I said, let me see what this music's about. And when she thinks I'm ready, the dancer, because I tell she was the most, then we'll talk about it. But like I say, I didn't know about a cajon, and then I actually should have bought two. I got Schlagwerk, which is top of the line from Steve Weiss. He goes, "Yeah, I got a couple of German ones, so I bought one." It's like the same thing, Vicente Amigos group. It's a serious cajon, right? And then I got into that and got to play with maestros and taught classes, but once again it was like I don't say karma necessarily, but I remember Ulrika saying, can you play flamenco? I says, I can play anything. She said, well, have you played flamenco? And she says, what about flamenco? I says, I haven't, but I'm sure I can if I listen to it. So I also found a way of listening to it that's more organic and faster on the uptake than the way most people would, which is mostly listening to the tonalities, which tell you all the information, sort of like a chord progression. It's not like, oh, that's my bulleria beat. 12, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, boom, get that, get boom. No, you're going to hear, especially when you're backing a singer, and I've done stuff with international maestros with no rehearsal. Because I can relax because I'm listening to what the guitar player's doing, what the vocalist is doing. Sort of like in a jazz tune, the tune. You're not, if you're playing fours, you're not going, okay, I know I've got these 16 possibilities in 4 measures and this math will work. You still have to be coming out of the tune or it's not music, right? So same with this. It's got its own language, and I've been blessed to do that. So I would say flamenco, the Greek music. I've done some Indian music, the African stuff, Vecinos del Mundo. In fact, I was going to see some cats up there, like Michael Philip Mossman wrote a couple of charts for my band. He's in the Netherlands right now. He was Mario Balso's arranger. Ray Vega's up there, So I'm trying to get out now because I've got issues with my eyes and my health, and just reconnect with some folks. You dig? So I hope that answers your question about how it started, but it's still going on.
I understand. So you've had quite a wonderful adventure. You keep trying new musics out, and not trying them, but actually incorporating them into yourself. What happens to the music you already know about when you incorporate a new one?
Well, that's another thing, because when I did orchestral music, people forgot I played drum set. I would get every score for the whole symphony that if I played, I played friggin' Mozart's Requiem. I played, 4 Beethoven symphonies. I've done Enigma variations, Bartok Concerto for Orchestra. So my sensitivity for the jazz and the commitment to being present, not, okay, here we go, but here's a quote from, I played the same quote from Rite of Spring. Here we go again. No, when Scheherazade, I was weeping at the end. I never, when the conductor was giving instructions to other people, did I check out. I listened. The thing that I realized it was a drag is he might go measure 70, measure 41, and we may be in an 84 not that easy. I'm like, well, where the hell is that? Because in the timpani, you may not have any cues. So then I would buy the scores and I would write in those multi rests what's happening so I could enjoy the flow. Same with Bolero. You know, I saw people like working crossword puzzles before their entrance in Bolero because they're part. But guess what? They don't. If they're not going to enter with that same intensity, right?
Hmm.
So I also was principal percussionist for the Cobb Symphony for a while. So I did the Capriccio Espanol. I did all that, and I actually a friend of mine, Keith Ronfola, wrote a piece for Mary Akerman and myself that Gordon Stout helped to get published. It's for marimba, 5-octave marimba, and vibes in classical guitar.
Hmm.
So here's this crazy guy that started out playing like, I don't know, the rock of the day or the R&B of the day, and the next thing you know, I'm playing, uh, Ellington's Night Creatures, which was his orchestral suite, or I was a soloist in Desi by Michael Dowdery, who did the Metropolis Symphony, and we did the Firebird that night. So here we are doing Rachmaninoff in this, and I'm running over being a soloist in this crazy jacket I wore, running back. So to me, and the Bartok Concerto, at the time, Tom Sherwood was principal. He's up in Cleveland now of Atlanta Symphony. He goes, his wife was our principal flautist. She's like, Tom said, that's why he doesn't play timpani. But to me, it's a bunch of 2/5 progressions.
Hmm.
I was at home with it, right? I heard what was happening very easily. So I would say that I don't draw a line between. It's kind of like a rainbow. Here's an analogy just is coming to me now. You see a rainbow, the colors kind of meld. They're not boom, boom, right? Right? There's it kind of fades into the next. So that's sort of how, without consciously doing it, finding a commonality without intellectualizing it, but by feeling, but by listening, and then just surrendering, I would say.
Well, now you're answering my question well, but you're talking about how what you learned now affects what you take on later. And I'm asking the opposite question. For instance, after doing this Indian music, after doing this flamenco, can you go back again and play rock and roll? Does it
Yes.
just drive you nuts?
No, it does. I used to sing country music. There's so much you don't know about me. Look, no, it doesn't. See, that's the whole deal. I studied like jazz theory and piano, and someone's like, how can you be so advanced rhythmically and you're singing country music? I have people want me to go to that. How about this? If you go, I grew up dreaming of being a cowboy, loving the cowboy ways, pursuing the life of my high riding heroes. I burn up my childhood days. Learned all the rules of a modern day drifter. Don't you hang on to nothing too long. Just take what you need from the ladies and leave them, with the words of a sad country song. My heroes have always been cowboys and still are, it seems. Listen to this. Sadly in search of and one step in back of themselves and their slow moving dreams. And it's got stuff like to die in the cold in the arms of a nightmare. Dude, I'm like, if you, and I know all the lyrics, when Sunny gets blue, her eyes get gray. Because I'm not like, here's my brush pattern I learned over here. I'm engaged. So I'm like, you take, comb your hair, paint and powder, you act proud. And I taught Hank Williams Jr.'s son, Shelton. Okay. So I'm saying I'm like humanity, the storytelling of the country music. What is it? What you're trying to get something out that impacts people. So I'm like, hey man, I'd love to play with the smoking. I just play with a fiddle player in Arkansas. I'm like, shoot, man, I could do that in a heartbeat. Or a decent, rock band that's, uh, I'm not too much into volume right now, but I can slap it down loud. I'm just don't want to schlep a bunch, right?
Right.
So it doesn't. I can go back, and it's not a problem. To me, it's not back. It's almost like, hey, Back to the Future. No, it's. I've grown, but I can bring that thing to it.
This is a wonderful answer. I hear you saying that there's something deep at the core of all of this music, and each different kind of music you explore just reveals more of that deep thing to it. So that when you go back to rock or country, you just have a better, deeper thing to give it.
Yes, because most young rock players, they know a song, they know a beat. I sat in with a band in New Delhi. that was playing, and they were like, the guy wouldn't leave me alone. He came up, I went to see my guru, but it's like they did. I thought we'd play like some Tagore or something, and they were doing like. So I sang Johnny Be Good in New Delhi with this band, and they thought I was the king. But I used to be called Johnny Allegro, and that was my stage name in country music. I didn't want anybody to know it at that time, but I totally, totally, like I say, I remember those lyrics. I mean, they're not written down. I kicked the habit of smoking. If you're loved, I ain't no lifesaver yet. I'm going cold turkey. There's not even one kiss a day. I mean, everybody's got the heartache. Everybody's got the joy. So it's kind of like, how dare you not appreciate people who come? I'm talking about jazz cats or anybody. Come out. There's people that left their safety to come out and hear you, and you're going to cop an attitude. And I used to play shows at the Club Atlantis, and I actually saved them one of our guitar players' life. He was stabbed, but the Clint Holmes, he was on what's her name, Joan Rivers show and all. Really good singer. Did a lot of stuff in Vegas. My name is Michael. He did that. And I saw him. For some reason, it was a bad night. And this is downtown, the Hyatt Regency. There used to be a showroom. I played for the Drifters and all that. That's a good Drifter joke. But and one night there was like very few people in the audience. And I saw Clint backstage looking in the mirror, psyching himself out. And he came out and he did that damn show as if it was standing room only. That's the kind of vibe. And it only takes one receptive person. And we call that duende in flamenco. It creates that dynamic current, yeah? And it pulls more out of the artist and things. So I guess all of these experiences, if I can find like the how about the Stones, man? I mean, girl, you got you a diamond. Don't play with me. You're playing with fire. I mean, that stuff resonates with me. I don't get to play it anymore. But yeah, I'll never be like, nah, ever.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about something you do that not every drummer is willing to do, and that's be spontaneous and improvise. How is it possible to be spontaneous and improvise and still make good music with other people?
Other than free jazz?
Well, I don't know, including free jazz, really. Free jazz can be done well, but it isn't often. That's all.
Well, it's interesting, but how can I repeat the question, because something came to mind. I want to make sure I'm in the right track. Go ahead.
How is it possible to be spontaneous and improvise and still make music with other people?
Okay. Well, number one, you've got a playground. Each music has an idiom to play in. Classically, if I'm doing a Baroque piece and I effluviate all kinds of romantic nuances, then I'm selfish. I'm being a moron. Look at me. So there's certain people I won't play with because I realize that they're not givers. So the main thing is, and I never mention names, I just see lessons and I'm like, yeah, they can't play jazz. They can't, and I've sung. So if you're going to back up a singer, you can't have this attitude. That's a very vulnerable place to be. So I think if you understand the basic, let's say it's a blues, okay? So you've got your 12-bar blues, you've got your 40. So then you're not going to do, like, if I'm going to be playing in the blues, and I start ding, 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 all the crap that I think I learned at Berkeley, then what have I done? I've not served the music. So I think as long as like gospel music, if you're supposedly in a gospel band, now if you get the call, usually there's either it's a last ditch attempt because there's nobody, or they assume you can do it. If you don't assume it, you do a little research and you kind of say, what is this thing called gospel music, right? So then when you go in with that humility and that openness, not to have a game plan. Because once again, then you're not receiving the information. You've got filters, like in martial arts, right? You're going, okay, when he throws this, I'm going to do that. You're dead meat. You just got to go in there and chill and go, I'm going to dance with this cat and let's see what happens. right? So I would say that, and I had an experience recently in Arkansas where I did this journey of jazz, it was called, for a jazz history class, and I took Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and took it through a bunch of different rhythms, harmonies. Uh, talked about clave and things. So we even did free jazz, and as a joke, I told the guys if they laughed, I would not pay them. We did a condensed version of 433 by John Cage for jazz trio.
Wait, let's tell the audience what that is. That's a piece of 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, and that's the instruction to the performer.
And I, right. And so what is the piece then? No, what is the piece? I'm asking you.
Oh, well, I love that piece. That piece, as I, I just talked about it with one of my students last week. What John Cage has done is he's helped us see everything in the performance that isn't the music, which makes it part of the music.
So, but it's basically the audience reaction that creates the piece because you're not doing anything. Now, a lot of times, slam the piano lid down right at the very, but I performed that piece in a college setting. I did it in 3 movements and had a page turner. And I had some, so you're snort and all that, so it becomes aleatoric, right? It's not there, but I mean, people can't handle silence. So that makes them, and nowadays that piece would probably, if people didn't know, okay, I'm not supposed to react, it would probably be even more disconcerting because of all the stuff we've got going on, right? So we even did that, and I can't 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, if you smile, and we only did a minute, right? Because next time, but the piano player that was going to go over there 3 days before, and I bought plane tickets and everything else, had one rehearsal. He got into an argument with the man who hired us and got fired. So we had no piano player. So we this wonderful man, Kenny Banks Sr., I never worked with him before. He came by way of Philadelphia to Little Rock, which is like ridiculous because the guy that fired the other dude had to buy his ticket. I said, I'm done with the admin, right? So Kenny's kind of a heavy, and I mean, I've never played with him, so I'm like, whatever. But I'll tell you, the thing that was amazing, because we did Poinciana, we did, I did it kind of like, Fournier does it. Sweet Georgia Brown, Ann Hager's Blues. But here was a situation where the bass, that supposed to be a bass there, not rented. Drums, nobody could find. I had to use a snare, an oversized bass drum, a hi-hat, and a cymbal for the whole concert, and one floor tom. Piano was 15 cents flat, but the octaves were in tune. But everybody was 100% a good guy, no complaining, without saying anything. And the ears were so magic happened in that had we been even more familiar, we may have been, oh, here comes Brian, here comes Adam. It's like, yeah, I know Adam's shtick, right? So, but I don't really, because I'm holding an image of you that's not you today or in this moment, right? So I think you can do this improv and facilitate this expression. Number one, if you go in and go, what the hell is this? Oh, this is supposed to be a set of drums. How do you play these? Well, we can see there's ways, some people, but hello. Another weird thing about me, I hear the sound probably from the class, like I hear how long a cymbal resonates. So when Kenny was blown away because he would do some line, I'd stop playing. And this is supposed to be jazz. Oh, and I had to do everything with brushes, except that, because we didn't mic anything, right? And the bass drum was a big 24-inch kick drum. Right, not happening, but I made it do the best. But everybody so I'm saying that thing of like, here's these weird things coming at us. Everybody's got a different background. The bass players also played orchestral music, but the heart. Number one, everybody had competency on their instrument. Everybody had heart, and everybody was so open that it was like, It was religious. So I think if that added, and we even did free jazz of Twinkle Twinkle. I'm like, ready, go, because we're going to count it off, right? And we just did it, and there it was. And I love Unit Structures, by Cecil Taylor and all. And James Blood Armour. I mean, we played gigs opposite him with the late Bronze Age. So all that ornette stuff, that whatever harmonic music they're talking about, he does that and tunes his guitar different. So I just think the main thing is if it's idiomatic, you listen to the idiom. You don't go in and butcher it. And if it's something like it's original, you don't say. A lot of times guys go, there's this lick. They want to learn the licks. No, they want you to learn the licks. The licks don't matter if the grooving's not there, right? Yeah. Just play that. We can go back to thing. Boom, 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 boom. That's a lick, but what's the feel? So I think that going in there with a cooperative attitude, a certain degree of competency, and a certain degree of innocence can make it happen. That's my humble thing.
Do you? You're lighting up all my lights here because I share all these attitudes with you. I really feel just the same way you do about this kind of thing. But what I'm curious to know is, were you like this from the beginning, or did you get the crap kicked out of you in certain ways that led you to understand these things? Were there moments in which you really had the lights come on and say, oh, I thought I was doing it, and no, I was not?
Well, when you're real young, and some cats still have it, and they should be ashamed of themselves, there's that certain just joy of kinetic, like wailing, regardless, right? But I think because I listened to at an early age, like I say, I had a really rough relationship with my dad. I was living in a hotel. I was playing in black clubs. I mean, the stuff that I was getting exposed to, playing with like Marion Brown from Ascension and all that stuff like that, not in the big band, Oscar Peterson trio, which I love, but Albert Eiler, Archie Shepp, all these different things, which some of that's crap, but I was hearing it, and then the world music, I think that, and being like on the stand with mature musicians, one of the sad things you'll see often at a college is when the vocalist sings, like vocal majors, they have a professional accompanist. But for a lot of times for the jazz program, it's students accompanying students. I've seen that. It's horrible. And then they'll learn to play. They'll work on their solo all semester and play it. And I remember one time this doctor, he used to teach at New England Conservatory. He's like, intensity. I says, if I may be so bold, they're remembering this. They're not playing jazz. You ought to ask them to play a blues right off the bat or play a modal thing, but you've worked out your solo for 12 weeks and you're calling that jazz? How about crap? What do I do now? And having that be honest, it's like Ben Webster was playing one time, and I think Ahmad Jamal told this story, and he stopped playing, and Ahmad Jamal said, "Why'd you stop playing?" He goes, "I forgot the lyrics." So making that contact, but being engaged. He wasn't like, yeah, whatever this crap is. It was a standard tune, so it's got lyrics, it's got a melodic contour. But I think I forget more now, but I actually played tunes. I'm not talking about bebop because, bebop's different, but I got to play standards with elders. I got to get that flow of melody and things like that. So that was just exposure. And then I even think, believe it or not, through meditation and the struggles I've gone through, the humanity side opened up. That's why I can surrender to this instrument. Always going to be stinky at it, but I've got maestros who have darkened my doorway and love me because of my heart and my commitment to. A friend of mine who's passed away said the one thing I taught him was how to take care of the music. A lot of times music is a way, it's like it defines them. Who you are, it should be, whether you're making dinner, playing music, that's what it should be. But a lot of times, yeah, I do this, therefore I'm not that. And it's to serve something other than, but when you surrender to the thing called music and try to take care of it, then I think there's a certain magic, and I think people can sense that.
What's next for you?
I have no clue.
Do you want to do anything?
I just want to keep growing and serving. I would like to share what I have with people, uh, but it's like I have no. You want to see what? When I laugh, go see my website. It tells you this is a paragraph and all that Latin stuff. I'm very horrible at self promotion, but this interview, I did another recent interview. I mean, I would like to go and do some master classes and teaching and mentoring without consciously mentoring, because once again, that's a trap. I've got people that have stayed in touch and like, oh, you meant, you were more than this. I'm like, okay, God bless you, or parent weeping, and you were there for my son. I wasn't aware any of that was happening. So it's kind of like your nature has got to be your nature. So I am like kind of open to see, but I have no direction, so to speak.
Well, I'd like to help you with that if I can. How can people find you?
Well, my picture's at the post office. They don't even have those anymore, man.
I know the good old days are gone.
All my friends used to be a family reunion. It's the family album. Uh, no, I mean I am on YouTube. You look Jerry Fields and Vecinos del Mundo. I do have a website. You'll see what a paragraph is. I'm more out there than you would think, but that's my next thing. Is it just at least because this guy that did the big long interview with me that worked for Zappa linked it to my website, so that's going to make me at least, because I spend the time hands on the axe. But to be like, well, no one knows about you, what can happen, right? So yes, that's. But yes, Jerry Fields. I'm on Facebook. Jerry Fields Drums and Percussion. I've got a professional page, and just Jerry Fields, you'll see drums. That's me. And then I'm on YouTube as well with Vecinos del Mundo. And I just did a really cool thing with Christina Smith from the Symphony. We did the what's its name, the Claude Bowling Suite. She's principal flautist. So who the heck knows, man?
Well, Jerry Fields, it's really been a treat to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us.
I hope I didn't say too much or run nutty and interrupt your question flow, but it felt pretty good to me. I'm just really opening up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Really, it's a joy. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Hope to meet you live one day, and love Brian, and thanks for the introduction, Adam.
Thanks, Jerry. And thank you too, audience. We really appreciate you joining us tonight, and we hope that you're enjoying these interviews. If you are, please push that like button. Please leave comments in the comment section. And if there's somebody you want me to talk to, contact me and let me know. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.